Welcome to Getting Out of the Pain Lane with Dr. Richard Klein. Brought to you by the Michigan Head and Neck Institute in Warren with your host, John McCullough. The Michigan Head and Neck Institute exclusively treats TMJ and obstructive sleep apnea for thousands of patients every year. Now, here's John McCullough with Dr. Richard Klein.
Good evening and welcome to Getting Out of the Pain Lane with Dr. Richard Klein, and I'm John McCullough, and I can't see you, Dr. Klein. Did you know that?
I can hear you, John, but I'm used to that over the years. I hear your voice.
Well, I wonder if you could move to your right.
This way. To my right, your left. Tell me when you can see me, and I'll move the microphone. Now I can see you.
Yeah, that's much better.
All right.
Now, I don't know if the audience can see you.
We'll ask Tiffany about that.
So we'll just, hey, look.
Oh, Tiffany is here and doing her magic.
Folks can put up with a little inside baseball here, and we'll be fine.
Those of you who can't see Tiffany, she's beautiful.
They can see her.
Wait, go back down, John. Technical difficulties in the studio. We just want to make sure we...
Okay, we're working on it, and it's...
And those of you listening, you know, at the Patriot, we don't have to be totally politically correct because some people might say that's sexist for me to tell a beautiful woman that she's beautiful. And I don't believe in that. I believe in the fact that Americans should be able to speak on their mind. And just we're rambling now till you get ready. But my staff, there's a 13-year-old boy who was the son of one of the people in my staff, and this is sick. This is really sick what America has turned down to. She came home, and he came home and apologized to his mother because in school he's being taught that it's not right, it's sexist to open a door for a woman. And he's been opening the door for his mom and proud of it. Now he's being told not to do that. What's going on in this world?
Yeah, and what it really does, too, is to confuse youngsters.
Yes.
And that's... I've seen it happen. It confuses me sometimes when I forget. We were at a wedding, my brother's wedding, last weekend, and in a very crowded place in Charlotte, North Carolina, and there were a lot of people coming in with packages and so forth, and so I was kind of opening the door and standing outside, and I opened the door for this one person, and I thought she was going to hit me, and she wasn't with the wedding party. She wasn't with the, she wasn't. She was going in. I mean, I don't know if she's a waitress or what, but she was insulted that I was holding that door open for her.
That's sad.
And I felt like just slamming it in her face, I shouldn't say that. I'll probably get a letter, but that's okay. Anyway, we're here to talk about TMJ disorder and sleep apnea.
Well, I'll fit into both of those with a little more of a commentary with that because I get more hugs from my patients now or handshakes, and I'm old-fashioned. If a woman wants me to hug her and it's just a friendly hug, I don't see anything wrong with that. But when I did a root canal, everybody would just pay me and run. They never shook my hand or thanked me. And so when I'm helping someone, especially a woman whose husband snores and they're not sleeping together, and then they see me for sleep apnea because the man doesn't want to wear the CPAP and the snoring goes away and they're sleeping together, the woman gives me a hug. And I'll take it. I'm old-fashioned. I don't see anything illegal about that or immoral about that. I mean, plus I'm in my office and all my staff are around me, so there's nothing wrong with that. It's just being a good American. Speaking of the CPAP,
and we're going to get into the specifics of TMJ disorder and sleep apnea and so forth, there are alternatives to the CPAP. And one of the big parts of your service to the people that come to see you is helping people who simply can't wear it, who for whatever reason, there are people who are claustrophobic, there are people who they don't like the there's water involved, and so they just don't like it, and so rather than seek help, they put it away, which doesn't do them any good.
Oh, it ends up making them sick and dying earlier than they should. And the CPAP, there's nothing wrong with the CPAP. I totally believe in the CPAP. It works if you wear it. And you're absolutely right. If you're not going to wear it, there are a lot of alternatives now. Losing weight. Now, that's pretty difficult for a lot of people to do. But if you weigh 400 pounds, your chances of having sleep apnea are pretty high. So what I do for those who won't wear the CPAP, or for those who just want both, because some people go hunting and there's no electricity up north, I'll make a mouthpiece that brings their jaw down and forward. They look a little bit like they're Jay Leno when they're sleeping, and the jaw's anteriorly placed so that there's room in the back for that air to come in. And that works just as good as a CPAP for mild or moderate, when the NIH believes that it works just as good when you put everything together, because more people are likely to wear the mouthpiece. It's more comfortable than the mask. And when I first got into this, I went to have a polysomnography just to see what it was like, because I figured I want to know what my patients experience. And I found out I had sleep apnea. It was mild, but I found out I had sleep apnea. And I'm a scuba diver. I had no problems wearing the mask, but I toss and turn. And one of the things, you mentioned a few, is when a person tosses and turns, the mask kind of gets pulled off their face. And I remember laughing one time. My wife in the middle of the night says, "What are you laughing for?" And I said, "Well, I was having a nice dream that I was scuba diving, and all of a sudden I felt this rush all over my face. And I'm glad I wasn't underwater. It was just the air blowing into my eyes when the mask moved." And so I don't like the mask. I could wear it if I was knowing that I was going to die. And I don't understand this, John. People who know I'm going to die from sleep apnea won't wear the mask. Some of them, not all of them, but I don't understand that. It's probably similar to people who smoke and won't give it up. I've seen people in the cancer ward with a tracheotomy, and they're smoking through the trach. I just don't understand people. Do you think if you were going to live 20 years longer and be healthy or whatever it was, you would do it? I think most people would, but not everybody.
Yeah, well, and there's the story of Sigmund Freud, whose face literally disappeared from facial and oral and maxillary cancer, and up until the day he couldn't do it anymore because he had no lips and anything else, he smoked his 4, 5, 6, 7 cigars.
Yep.
And he knew it was killing him. I don't know if they knew to the degree at the time.
At the time,
but they probably had a pretty good idea.
I would think so. Yeah.
You would think so. So we're here to talk about TMJ and sleep apnea, TMJ disorders and obstructive sleep apnea. If you have questions, feel free to give us a call, 800-923-9385. That's 800-923-WDTK. You can also use the text feature on your smartphone app. Some people prefer to enter questions that way, and that's fine with us. They feel a little bit more comfortable doing it that way. And it might give Dr. Klein a chance to expand more on the answer if you do it that way. But if you call in and he has questions of your question, then you can deal with it that way better also. I have one question, then we're going to get to, we have text questions waiting, and I'm sure we'll get some calls here in a minute. Can, in any time, any sleep apnea problems or TMJ disorder that can cause problems swallowing?
Yes. There's a lot of reasons that people have trouble swallowing. One of them related to TMD problems. If you have a temporomandibular joint problem and the muscles become tight trying to protect the joint, those muscles are in your face, your jaw, your neck, from about the brow strap up in the same area in a man. Those muscles posture how the jaws come together. Now, there's muscles in the back of your throat and the front of the throat. To answer your question, there's a little bone called the hyoid bone right here. It's the one that Columbo used to say, well, they were strangled, that hyoid bone is broken. It's a little floating bone like a small toothpick, and nothing attaches to it. There is a muscle called the anterior digastric, anterior toward the front. Digastric, first part of digestion is what? Chewing. So that muscle attaches to your chin, and it loops around the hyoid bone. If it's tight, it pulls up on the hyoid bone, and you have trouble swallowing. So, yes, that could be a TMJ problem. And the way I determine that is if they say, I can't swallow, it feels like I'm choking when I swallow, I'll take a little shot of Marcaine, because you can't really massage the front. Try to massage your neck and the back, it feels good. You'll choke if you try to massage the front. So I'll take a little shot of Marcaine right here, and I'll numb up that muscle. And if it relaxes and they can swallow, then I know, well, they can't swallow because the muscle's tight. And then that's treatable very easily.
In what way?
You just keep the muscle relaxed. The muscle generally is tight because you have a TMJ problem. The TMJ problem, the brain knows that when there's a problem in the joint here, it tries to tell these muscles guard, and by guarding, they get tight so you don't move much. You've had a stiff neck for a while. It goes away usually. So what happens when that situation occurs? You jerk yourself or you do something and there's a little bit of irritation in the neck, and the brain doesn't want that neck to have a problem. So it tells the muscles guard. And then for a little while, you can't turn your head. And then when the muscles start to relax because the brain doesn't give it the message, it's healed, then you turn your head better. Well, the same thing with TMJ. The brain tells the muscles, guard, get tight. And those muscles for TMJ affect your eye, your ear, your neck, your face, your jaw, front and back. So basically, when you get the muscles relaxed and they don't have to guard anything, they stay relaxed. That's simple.
Our telephone number, 800-923-9385. That's 800-923-WDTK. This is Dr. Richard Klein's program. It's called Getting Out of the Pain Lane, and it's sponsored by the Michigan Head and Neck Institute. We're glad to do the show. We love doing the show because we learn so much every time we do it. And we've got some questions here, and I'm just going to go ahead and go to them. They're on the text feature.
Just like the question you asked me, let's go for it.
Okay. Hello, Dr. Klein. This is Christina from West Bloomfield. I'd like to know why the TMJ appliance is better than the surgery.
That's an easy one. Surgery used to be considered for TMJ problems many years ago. And what they would do, they'd find out that the condyle, which is the part of the lower jaw that fits into the little cave here called the temporomandibular joint, looks like a lollipop in a little cave. And if the muscles are tight, they pull that jaw up, and the lower jaw bangs into the skull, and that hurts. So in the 1980s, what they would do is they would open it up and cut the top of the little condyle off, so there'd be room. Well, that made sense if you didn't think of the consequences. Now the jaw was imbalanced, so they found out it hurt more. So then they did with surgery, they would take it out and they'd put Teflon coated titanium in there, thinking that'll be strong, it'll work. Well, the Teflon coated titanium was stronger than the bone, and it perforated through, and they started chewing into their brain. So they went away from surgery. They stopped doing surgery because of that.
You'd think at the point where they start chewing up their brain, they would get away from this.
Well, it didn't happen a lot, but it did happen a few times, so they stopped that kind of surgery. And they stopped doing it in the knee. They do different things in the knee now, so they've learned over the years. But surgery is sometimes an option, but not in that context. Let's say you were Jay Leno, and you had this huge lower jaw, and it was unbalanced. Forget Jay Leno because he doesn't have that problem, but let's say you were totally unbalanced. Well, then cutting the jaw down and making it equal to the top and bottom, that would be acceptable. But the kind of surgery that they do not do anymore is that time where they go in and they change the inside of it here. And an oil appliance keeps the jaw down so that it doesn't bang up in there, and you don't have to have surgery. And that generally works if the people are cooperative wearing it. And most people will wear the TMJ appliance, unlike most people won't wear the CPAP, because first of all, it takes their pain away. They like that. And they get used to it. It's sort of like when you were little, probably you had a blanket. Most kids have a blanket and they walk around with it. My daughters both had, one of them called it the ba. I don't know why, but that's probably what she first pronounced it as. But most people understand that, and the kids grow out of that. But if you're an adult and you can't get rid of the mask, and you don't know that it's making you feel better because it doesn't do that much to you unless you're severe. If you're severe, you're going to get a lot of oxygen and you could notice the difference. But a lot of people with sleep apnea don't even know they have it. They're slowly dying, slowly having the cells lose their oxygen, and they don't notice the difference unless they wear it every night for a couple months. Then they'll say, hey, I have a little more energy. But when you wear a mouthpiece for TMJ and it takes the pain away in a couple weeks or a couple months, then you want it because it makes you feel good. And so the compliancy is much better.
And this may be a little bit of a redundancy from the first question I asked you. I had not seen this yet. Al from Washington Township, he said, I hear Dr. Klein talk a lot about a shot in the face or neck. How would a shot help my TMJ?
When a shot, this is not the kind of shot where you go to a bar and have a shot and a beer. It is an injection. He's probably asking it. Well, what I'm doing with the muscles, there are a lot of ways to make the muscles relaxed. One is to find out what's making them tight. And if they're tight because they're protecting the joint, the orthotic will do that. But sometimes it's so chronic that even just putting the mouthpiece in isn't helping enough. So I will find out where the muscle's tight. And I learned this from Dr. Janet Travell. She invented this technique years ago. She was President Kennedy's physician. And President Kennedy had a lot of problems from the PT-109 accident. His back was miserable, the poor guy. He was in a wheelchair in the White House, and he didn't want anyone to notice it. So if he had to be on TV, Dr. Travell would come over, and this goes along with, you said it was Al? Al, this will answer your question. President Kennedy, if he had to be on TV and he was having a bad day and he just didn't feel like walking and he was miserable, she would come over and find his trigger points and use Marcaine, which is a local anesthetic. It's still around. It's what I use, and numb up the trigger point. And then he'd feel good. So a trigger point is a hyper-irritable spot in a muscle that refers pain somewhere else. They didn't believe her when she did that. Now this is mainstream medicine in any country in the world for pain management. So if you find out where the trigger point is and you give it a little shot of Marcaine, the muscle totally relaxes and the blood supply comes into that relaxed muscle and flushes out the acid. And the way I explain it to my patients is this. When you were young, you had to move the sprinkler and you didn't want to get wet. So what'd you do? You crimped the hose. Most people understand that. So what happens with a trigger point, the muscle's so tight that the blood can't get in there. So if you numb up that muscle, it's like uncrimping the hose and letting the water go through the hose, or letting the blood go through the circulatory system and flush out the acid, and the pain goes away. So injecting into the neck or the face for muscles that are tight because of a TMJ problem is just part of my normal protocol. And I learned that from Dr. Travell many years ago.
This must be text night, and I've got some more questions for you, but we're going to need to take a break so we don't get behind the clock. You'd like to call and ask Dr. Richard Klein a question. We're talking about TMJ disorder. We're talking about obstructive sleep apnea and some of the misconceptions and some of the conceptions about both. And if you would like to ask a question of Dr. Klein, 800-923-9385. That's 800-923-WDTK. And we also have the text feature on the phone app, and you can submit questions that way too. So we'll get to the questions that we have, and we'll add yours to the pile as we continue at 800-923-9385 on Getting Out of the Pain Lane with Dr. Richard Klein on FM 101.5 and AM 1400, The Patriot.
I want you to put something on your to-do list, and it's to go see the movie Wonder. I read the book last year after my daughter called me in tears saying, "Mom, you've got to read this right now." Well, she was right. I did, and it's one of the most heartwarming, life-affirming, beautiful stories, and now it's a movie. It stars Julia Roberts and Owen Wilson, and Wonder is the true story of August Pullman, or Augie, as he's known to his family. Augie was born with facial differences, and after a lot of surgeries, his family held their breath as he entered public school in the 5th grade.
Prepare for blast-off. Have fun.
Wonder will make you laugh. You will cry. You'll give thanks for a film that celebrates life, love, kindness, and grace. I haven't loved a movie this much in a long time, and I know you're going to feel the same way.
What excites me about this movie is that it teaches other people to choose kind, and hopefully it'll make the world a better place.
Do not miss Wonder, opening this Friday in a theater near you.
The economy's flying. Inflation's nowhere to be seen. Deflation risk is abated, interest rates are low, and the fears over European politics, well, except for Britain, they've kind of disappeared. It's easy both to explain why markets have been celebrating and why so many people are worried that everything's just too perfect. Hi, this is Bob Boley from Online Trading Academy. Are you celebrating right now? Will you be sad in the future? Are you doing what it takes not only to make money in the market, but to protect yourself in that market? If you lost money in 2000 and you lost money in 2008, You want to make sure that it doesn't happen again. To do that, you need to have a strategy. As owner and operator of the campus here, one of 40 around the world, we teach people not only how to make money, but how to protect themselves and generate income in down markets. So if it's something that makes sense to you, if you want to protect the wealth or generate income, give me a call, 844-250-8723. Come to one of our free 3-hour workshops, 844-250-8723. See you there.
Larry Elder.
2 more women have now described unwanted overtures by Roy Moore. At some point, you have to say, maybe there's something there. Hard to figure out how much more damaging information might come out, but you never know. According to Congresswoman Jackie Speer, there are at least 2 known sexual harassers in Congress who've made settlements. How about naming names? Maybe she's not because they're Democrats? On the next Larry Elder Show.
Larry Elder, weeknights at 10 on the Patriot.
Have you racked up more than $10,000 in credit card debt? Are you barely getting by making minimum payments? You should know. The credit card companies are tricking you into thinking there's no way out. Credit card companies would rather you didn't know that there are ways you can become debt-free and you don't have to pay the entire amount you owe. There are debt relief programs that help people like you escape overwhelming credit card debt. National Debt Relief has helped tens of thousands of people just like you reduce more than $500 million of debt. National Debt Relief has helped so many people, they're A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. You don't have to declare bankruptcy or take out a consolidation loan. You have the right to settle your debt for a mere fraction of what you owe. Reduce a portion of your debt now. Call National Debt Relief at 800-518-4020. 800-518-4020. That's 800-518-4020.
I kick the blankets on the floor. This is Getting Out of the Pain Lane with Dr. Richard Klein of the Michigan Head and Neck Institute. We're taking calls on TMJ disorder, and even if it isn't TMJ disorder, you may not know it's TMJ disorder. You can go to tmjmichigan.com and check the symptoms there, and if you see something there that looks familiar, then you can give them a call and talk to them about it, or you can just call and ask them about other kinds of pain that you have. They don't necessarily have to be pains in the neck or pain in the head. He's certified in pain management, and Dr. Klein can lead you. If he is not the place you should be, he can generally lead you where you should be. And I think that's fair to say, isn't it?
Yes, and that song you just played just brought back a little memory of tossing and turning. I kicked the blankets on the floor. I mentioned before that I didn't like the CPAP because I toss and turn. It was a perfect song for that. But kick the blankets on the floor. Yeah, my wife says, "What are you taking the blanket away for me?" And I said, "I'm sleeping. You don't know what you're doing when you're sleeping." So I didn't even realize it. But yeah, I kick the blankets on the floor without even knowing it sometimes.
I'm not allowed to do that. There's a text question that came in. It says, "Hi, Dr. Klein. I have a brother who lives in California, and he has sleep apnea. He uses the CPAP, but he thinks it's cumbersome and uncomfortable. I've told him about you and the oral appliances, but who can he see in the L.A. area that does what you do? Do you know anyone, or is there a referral service?"
I'll tell you what. You use my telephone number online here. Just whoever's answering this question, call me. And I have a list of people. I'm on the board of directors of the American Sleep and Breathing Academy. And in the Los Angeles area, there most likely is somebody who knows what they're doing. And I'll look into that for you. I like to help people any way I can. So I'll try to find someone for your brother. LA's a big city. I would assume there's somebody that knows what they're doing there. And I'll look into that because I have the book with everybody who belongs to the American Sleep and Breathing Academy, the American Academy of Craniofacial Pain. I've got all of those, and I'm sure there's someone in California and probably close to LA that does that.
Yeah, and you can go to tmjmichigan.com to give Dr. Klein's phone number, which I have misplaced. So why don't you give it up?
I remember that phone number. It's 586-573-0438. 573-0438. And just tell them that you have a brother and you called in on the phone, and I'll if I don't remember to do it in the morning, I will find it, and then I'll give you some information. Be glad to help.
Yeah, just mention the radio show, and you'll get right through.
Yes.
That's one quick way to call attention to the call.
Yeah, because they weed out all the vendors that call me.
Yeah, you don't want to be included in that list, for sure. 800-923-9385 is our number if you have a question for Dr. Richard Klein. Has there been anything new come up since the last time that we've talked that is of?
Well, it was just something new for me, which I was really pleased at. A couple weeks ago, I lectured in San Francisco. I was asked to lecture, be a keynote speaker at a medical convention, which should make me very proud. But I've been too busy this year. I do 3 lectures out of the country, and then I lecture every month at St. John Hospital, and then, as you know, I'm a clinical professor at Michigan State Medical School, so it was just too much. So I turned it down until I realized my grandkids live there and my daughter live there. They live in Berkeley. So I called up and I said, I'll do it if you let me be the first speaker on Monday morning. And they said, sure. So I couldn't leave right away because there's not a lot of flights from Detroit to San Francisco every day. So I stayed and listened to the guy behind me. The guy after me was from another country. He was head of a university department in neurology. And he was talking about how you can have a stroke during a migraine. And he mentioned that more women have strokes when they're having migraine than men when they're having a migraine. And he went through a whole bunch of about 20 different possible reasons. If you're diabetic, do you have more strokes? No. They tested all these things. And then he said, it just happens. And for some reason, women have more strokes during a migraine than men do. And as you know, not you, but most people, the number one fear in the world is public speaking. That's not your problem because you don't have that problem. You love this. Well, that's true whether you're a physician or not. You're a human being. Just because they are very educated, they don't like to speak in public. And I had no qualms, so I put my hand up because no one was asking questions. And I said, well, the NIH in America and Michigan University, and I think it was Tufts University, all did different studies and show that women feel more pain than men do. And they handle it differently. So I said, if women feel more pain, they're more likely to be stressed more than the man because they feel the pain more. And what does stress do? It raises your blood pressure. Raising your blood pressure would make you prone to have a stroke. And he said, oh, we didn't consider blood pressure. And I felt kind of embarrassed. Here I'm a dentist at a medical convention, and the guy that put it together came over to me, and I thought he was going to just chew me out. And he said, are you here this afternoon? And I said, yes. He says, would you be the moderator? Because I'd like people to start talking. He says, first, do you know anything about gynecology? And I said, yeah, I'm a dentist, but my TMJ patients, when they're pregnant, when a woman is pregnant, the brain spills out chemicals to try to help expand the pelvis and soften it so they could give birth a little more comfortably. And my female patients with TMJ, their symptoms disappear for a few months because the brain softens the TM joint too. He says, yeah, I want you to be the moderator. And so at the end of it, I got my little plaque for speaking, and he gave me a certificate that it looks like a joke, but I'm proud of it. It says, Professor Dr. Richard Klein, thank you from the Michigan Head and Neck Institute for chairing the session on gynecology, cardiology, neurology, the whole bunch of those things are, that you don't expect a dentist to know. And I don't know them. That's not my field. But a human being, everything relates to something. And as you see me on this program and you've seen me talking to me, I'm looking at other things that could cause someone to be stressed, even though they're not something I treat, because maybe that's why they're clenching their jaws. And so if I find out why they're stressed, I refer. So it's nice to know a little bit more than you went to school for.
And it's also nice to have other people know that you do know it.
It makes me feel good, yeah. Like I said before, I get more hugs and handshakes than I did for doing a great root canal, because you go and get a root canal, you feel good, and you want to get out of there real quick, and that's it.
On our way down to Charlotte to go to the wedding, we unfortunately were practically in the middle of a 2 semi crash. where one of the drivers was killed and the other was airlifted out. It was on the West Virginia Turnpike, so there was no way to get off. And it was about 10 after 8, so it was dark, and I was already tired. We were going to stop fairly soon. And when we started talking to some of the guys in their trucks, I got out and banged on doors to find out what was going on, because we were at a standstill, and we were in the midst of just all these trucks. And the guys were all really pretty sad. I mean, they're pretty close fraternity. They may not know each other, but they all do the same thing. And the guy was real down and out. And he said, yeah, it's probably just another case of some guy just falling asleep. And he said, and this road is so narrow. And one of the guys had gone through the median, and the other one was tipped over the other side. And it was, anyways, 5.5 hours we had to sit because of the accident. But the subject of sleep apnea, and when I was in the one guy's cab listening, I could hear it coming up and down the line.
Sure.
And they were talking about it. So they're talking about it. And that's probably because the government has taken an interest in it, or maybe the trucking companies are even getting more
I think both are, because the last time I lectured to the Department of Transportation, they asked me to go there once a year. It's usually filled with people who owned 1,000 trucks and own companies. And they're starting to look now, because they first thought it was just doctors trying to make extra money to have you come in and get a checkup. And they're realizing that their people with sleep apnea are causing a lot of problems. And they're starting to get sued, and there's $1 million verdicts. So they're interested for the financial reasons of, let's make America road safe. It took them a while to get interested in that. And you're absolutely right. It's not just doctors trying to make more money. There's not a lot of money in that compared to millions of dollars of lawsuits. And so the truckers are now starting to say, yeah, maybe I should. And the reason is they didn't realize that it's their life that's in danger too. If you have sleep apnea, you're going to end up not being able to drive that truck. You're going to be too tired one day, and the next day you'll be sick, and then maybe you get diabetes, all sorts of things that sleep apnea can cause that will affect your ability to work. So they're now realizing if they want to live longer and be healthy and work longer, it actually saves them money to go get it checked. So they're looking at both sides of it now, and I like that, because for years the truckers were against it, thinking it was just some silly little thing. So what if you're tired? It's not being tired. It's falling asleep, killing people, or falling asleep when you shouldn't. But even if you don't fall asleep, it's being unhealthy quickly. You act like you're 80 when you're 50, and you can't drive a truck anyhow. So you're right. Both sides are looking at it the way they should. You constantly bring up the connection between obstructive sleep apnea and diabetes, and I don't know if it's a direct link, or it's because of the weight gain, or what it is. How to explain that link between obstructive sleep apnea? Type 2 diabetes has been found just a few years ago to be caused by sleep apnea. And the reason is it's not necessarily that you're obese. I mean, of course, if you're obese, you're more likely to have diabetes, yes. But you could be a 150-pound, 6-foot-tall guy or a woman and have diabetes without being obese. When you have sleep apnea, every cell in your body that needs oxygen and every cell that needs the exhalation of the carbon dioxide, both of those things stop. When you stop breathing, you're not exhaling, and the carbon dioxide destroys the cells, and the oxygen not being in the cells makes the cells deteriorate. And diabetes, type 2 diabetes, is caused by sleep apnea. It's not my opinion. That's a lot of peer-reviewed studies show that. And let's say you're on the verge of it, but you're healthy, so you don't get it. Well, now you're not healthy, you get it. I think everybody knows if you don't get enough sleep, you just don't feel good. So if you're not getting enough oxygen every single night, it's not just that you don't feel good. Every cell in your body isn't good. Slowly they deteriorate, and they cause high blood pressure, they cause strokes, they cause diabetes, I can go on for longer than you have, mentioning all the things that it could aggravate or cause. Every cell that has less oxygen is going to be unhealthy. So they're understanding that now, and it's a good thing they are. The problem is statistics. People in America are getting more and more obese. And that's changing the other side of it there, unfortunately.
Are there parts of the country that are more and more obese and more prone to?
Yes, if you go online, you could look up the obesity levels in every state, and I don't have them in my head, but you're absolutely right. Some down south generally is a little bit more obese than up north. That may be because of the good southern cooking, or I don't know what it is. But your question is correct. There are certain areas that are more obese.
Because and I'm not trying to point fingers here, I'm just curious. Pulled into one truck stop, and there wasn't a person working in that truck stop that didn't need to lose 100 pounds, at least 100 pounds.
And you go back 2 generations in America, America wasn't that fat. If you go to concerts or baseball or football games, they're making the seats bigger because America is larger than it used to be. I don't mean the country, I mean the people in the country. They are getting larger.
In professional athletics and in non-professional athletics, do you see more cases of TMJ disorder or obstructive sleep apnea? Is there any connection between contact athletics and those two fields?
Well, with sleep apnea, it doesn't matter if you're playing sports or not. If you're playing sports, you're probably healthier than the average person, but then you're hurt more. So I see more TMJ problems with athletes than I do from accountants or people who are... Depends on your stress. I see a lot of the clergy. You would think, wow, they should be happy. They love God. They're preaching what they believe in, and they're hugging people all the time. But think of this. I don't care whether you are a priest, a minister, a rabbi. You work 7 days a week.
24 hours a day.
Yeah, 24 hours a day. So you may love what you're doing, but you don't have time like you and I do. I go home on the weekend. I spend it with my dog and my wife and play golf, and they don't have time for that. I see a lot because they're stressed. Well, that's not your question, but by category, I see a lot of athletes that have been pushed around playing soccer, heading soccer. Football players, they get a lot of concussions. They're working on that now, and when you get a concussion, you can almost guarantee you have a TMJ problem because if the head goes around like a Mexican jumping bean, the jaw does too. So yes, athletes with their injuries, depending on the athlete, maybe not a golfer. Golfer have a bad back, but probably not a TMJ problem unless it's from stress. But generally, to answer your question, the athletes that have body contact have a lot more TMJ than somebody who's just sitting at a desk, except for the stress factor.
And getting back to the religious, on the priests and folks like that, they work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that's obvious. That phone rings, they got to answer it. They generally see people. I mean, there's happy times, there's weddings and so forth.
They go to a lot of funerals compared to you and I, yeah.
For the most part, it's funerals and hospital quick visits, emergencies, that kind of thing. And the kind of contact that they're making could be adding to the stress at the same time, couldn't it?
Sure. It probably, if it was me and I went to visit a sick friend, I would feel good that I was there visiting them. But if that friend was going to die, I don't feel too good about that, and that's just me going once every 4 years. They're going a lot, and that's their job, and they like doing it, but it's got to be depressing for them. I mean, they'll say, well, it's God's will, but they watch their friend die. It's got to hurt them just like it would you watching your friend die.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
800-923-9385. That's 800-923-WDTK. We'll talk about some of the other professions that are prone to TMJ disorder and to obstructive sleep apnea, and we'll take your calls. We still have plenty of time to do that. Again, that number, 800-923-9385. That's 800-923-WDTK. Or feel free to use the text feature on your WDTK phone app. You're welcome to do that, as that's where our questions have come from tonight, here on FM 101.5 and AM 1400, The Patriot.
Patriot News Online is sponsored by Buffalo Wild Wings. If your weekends are reserved for football, then you should be watching the games at B-Dubs, where all fans are there for the same reason: to watch sports. Buffalo Wild Wings. Wings, beer, sports.
Hugh Hewitt, Mike Gallagher, Dennis Prager, Sean Hannity, John McCullough, Michael Medved, Larry Elder on The Patriot.
I want you to put something on your to-do list, and it's to go see the movie Wonder. I read the book last year after my daughter called me in tears saying, "Mom, you've got to read this right now." Well, she was right. I did, and it's one of the most heartwarming, life-affirming, beautiful stories, and now it's a movie. It stars Julia Roberts and Owen Wilson, and Wonder is the true story of August Pullman, or Augie, as he's known to his family. Augie was born with facial differences, and after a lot of surgeries, his family held their breath as he entered public school in the 5th grade.
Prepare for blast off. Have fun.
Wonder will make you laugh. You will cry. You'll give thanks for a film that celebrates life, love, kindness, and grace. I haven't loved a movie this much in a long time, and I know you're going to feel the same way.
What excites me about this movie is that it teaches other people to choose kind, and hopefully it'll make the world a better place.
Do not miss Wonder, opening this Friday in a theater near you.
Hugh Hewitt is looking for a special investigation for a list of things.
Jeff Sessions considering a second special counsel to investigate the House Judiciary Committee chairman's many concerns. This is what I really think they've got to do, is dig deep into everything that was covered up, even Fast and Furious. I'd just make a laundry list. Nobody trusts what happened under Obama. Nobody.
The Hugh Hewitt Show, weekday mornings at 6 on FM 101.5 and AM 1400. The Patriot.
This is Jerry Boyer for townhall.com. 500 years ago, Martin Luther started a debate by nailing a document with 95 theological assertions to the door of the Wittenberg Cathedral, triggering the Reformation. No matter which side of that theological debate you're on, you should be grateful for the ultimate effects of this action on Western liberty and prosperity. Luther took existing strands of thought and weaved them together into a powerfully influential biblical argument for freedom of conscience that ultimately laid the groundwork for our American First Amendment. Many of these 95 assertions concerned economic exploitation, and Luther's doctrine of the priesthood of all believers helped to create a culture which honors hard work and innovation. In the lands influenced by the Reformation, living standards have increased 100-fold. Ordinary people who used to die routinely in their 30s now often live into their 80s, and child mortality has gone from tragically common to increasingly rare. Luther wasn't perfect, but the good that he preached is needed now as much as it was then. I'm Jerry Boyer.
Welcome to today's lottery drawing. And today's winning numbers are not yours, not yours, and another number that's not yours. And the final number is not yours.
When it comes to having money, don't rely on luck. Brew your own coffee at home instead of buying that latte. Brown bag it to work instead of ordering it. Go to feedthepig.org for more free ideas on how to save. Feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
Toss it and turn it and toss it and turn on. I kick the blankets on the floor.
This is Getting Out of the Pain Lane with Dr. Richard Klein of the Michigan Head and Neck Institute, and we are taking your calls at 800-923-9385. That's 800-923-WDTK. Calls on sleep apnea or suspicions of sleep apnea or TMJ disorder. You're welcome to give us a call and ask any. There are no dumb questions on this show. Only the questions that don't get asked are the ones that are the dumb questions. But if you do have a question, we could give you a short answer and talk to you about. Dr. Klein can talk to you about what needs to be done in the near and the immediate future. He can also talk to you about whether or not he thinks he can help you, and can, in many cases, direct you in a direction where you can get some assistance for pain that you can't explain, really. And being certified in pain management, Dr. Klein, you get, I'm sure, all kinds of questions. And I know they come in after the show or after I'll do an ad during the week, and the phone will ring, and it'll be somebody with some off-the-wall question, and you don't really care. You're there to help people. You don't care how off the mark the question is.
You're right. Like the gentleman who called, he said he had a brother in Los Angeles. Well, I don't know this guy. I don't know his brother, but if I can help his brother, I feel good about that. And if this question has nothing to do with what I know, I'm honest with it. I'll refer them in the right direction.
I have a number of clients who experience a seasonal increase in business. Unfortunately, they're dealing with various kinds of disasters. Do you have a time of year when things pick up because of tension or because of what's going on?
Yes and no. Now, when I was doing dentistry years ago, it would really pick up around this time of the year because people knew that they hadn't used their insurance and it was going to be gone at the end of the year. So for that reason, but now my TMJ patients come back a little bit more often if they're in pain when the weather gets cold, or even a month from now when they're driving in a blizzard. Because if you have a TMJ problem and the muscles are relaxed and you do something to tense up like this, the pain's going to come back quicker than it might on someone without a TMJ or a neck problem. And winter does aggravate the muscles a lot more with some people. Not everybody. I go to a Lions game with my wife, and sometimes I've got mittens on and a scarf, and I look and the guy's next to me's got shorts on, his legs look like a lobster. There are some people the cold doesn't bother them. I hate the cold.
I'm not a fan myself.
Yeah, I've never understood what a snowbird was until lately, and I'm going to be one.
Your our friend Dan that just stopped in, he's one now. And,
lucky him.
Yes, in fact, he'll be going soon, I think.
There's a young man who in a year and a half will graduate from dental school. He most likely will become my partner. But I've already told them the first couple of years you have to pay your dues, and the only thing you're going to have to pay the dues with is you can't take a vacation in the winter for a couple of years.
Well, and that's part of the one of the benefits of seniority.
Yep. I remember when I first came out of dental school, I was a low man on the totem pole, and I got Saturdays, and I got the evenings, and I've got all this, the stuff that they wanted to have time off. So I understand that.
Is the field of TMJ disorders and treatment of obstructive sleep apnea, is it expanding noticeably? Can you see
yes. When I first started doing TMJ work, I didn't know what I was doing. They don't really teach it that well in dental school. And it was really not looked at as mainstream. In fact, it was looked at like, that's quackery. Well, now it is mainstream medicine. I'm teaching it at Michigan State Medical School, and it is just another joint, and physicians look at joints in many different ways. And when there's a joint problem, they look at why is that joint bad, and what is happening to the joint, and what are you doing to make it better or worse. They look at a lot of things, not just the joint themselves. And that's what TMJ is like too. When I'm looking at a TM joint problem, I'm also looking at why are they clenching more? If their father is dying or they're going through a divorce, that makes sense. But if there's something organic going on with them that I don't treat, maybe they're grinding their teeth more because they have a musculoskeletal problem like Parkinson's or MS or Meniere's. And if they haven't been looked at, I'll refer them for that, because there's a lot of reasons people get stressed and clench their teeth. And if it's something that goes away in a couple months, then that's nice. But if it's something that's going to build up worse and worse, I look at that and refer. And I love looking at different things, because I found a picture today. When I lecture, I like to use visuals. There's this picture of a scuba diver, and he's standing up and he's looking and staring at an airplane that's all encrusted with barnacles. And I'm using that. I'm going to use that in my next lecture. When I'm talking to physicians, if you don't look for something, you're not going to find it. It's perfect for that. And up until now, the picture I've used for that same statement is there's 6 dogs all sitting in a row, and they're looking all to the left. Well, it's a nice picture. I like dogs, and they're all looking some way. There's probably a guy holding up food for the picture or whatever. But the same thing. If they're just looking that way and not looking around them somewhere else, they're going to miss something. And I'm guilty of that. I was doing TMJ work for many years. until I got interested in sleep. And now when my patient fills out their form, there's a couple pages on how do you sleep and lots of things related to sleep apnea. And before I added that, not one of my patients had a sleep problem. Not one of them. Because I didn't look for it and didn't ask.
Now you get it.
Now I see it, because I'm looking back, and I'll bet I missed a lot of them 20 years ago that I had a sleep problem. But if you don't look, you don't find. So that picture is good for that. And it helps. When physicians are students, they're not physicians yet. And they get, as anybody does, they get more knowledge after they get out of school, when they have the basics and now they find out what to do with it. And so if you don't look, you don't find.
My brother, his oldest son, is an anesthesiologist in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Has a nice little practice going. I think he's got 20 doctors or whatever. And his younger son just finished his residency here in Detroit, as a matter of fact, and is starting at his brother's practice as a beginning anesthesiologist. And
that's when he'll learn a lot.
Well, that's
yes.
right. And it's funny, we were talking, and this is totally off the subject, but I said, how do you think Tyler's going to do? And he says, as soon as we can deprogram him from all that stuff he learned in school, he's going to be a fine anesthesiologist.
It's sad, but it's true.
And it reminded me back to the times when we used to get kids in from graduating from college, and their only experience in radio had been NPR. And, it'd take us a year to deprogram them from that, and then they'd be just fine.
And I get people on purpose. They're sent to me from physical therapy school so they can see what I do.
Yeah,
and they learned it by watching you with a patient rather than reading a textbook.
That's the only way to do it. Okay, we are out of time. I want to mention Dr. Klein's phone number again, 586-573-0438. That's 586-573-0438. And, of course, anytime you can go to tmjmichigan.com and check out the symptoms of both TMJ disorder and obstructive sleep apnea. And we had so much fun doing it this time. We'll be doing it again next time. So I'll take this opportunity for Dr. Richard Klein at the Michigan Head and Neck Institute to say thank you very much for listening. And Dr. Klein, good seeing you. And
good seeing you. You're right. It was fun. I didn't know we were done.
Well,
it went quickly.
The music tells us that we are, and if we don't shut up pretty soon, they're going to talk over us, no matter what we do.
Yes.
Good
See
night,
you next
everyone.
month.
Thank you for joining us for Getting Out of the Pain Lane with Dr. Richard Klein. Sponsored by the Michigan Head and Neck Institute in Warren. The Michigan Head and Neck Institute exclusively treats TMJ and obstructive sleep apnea for thousands of patients every year. To learn more, visit their website at tmjmichigan.com. That's tmjmichigan.com. Or call 586-573-0438. 586-573-0438.